Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Friday's Women in Recruitment Stand Up Speak Out series. I hope you've all been coping well. I'm glad that the sunshine's come back out for us again for the weekend. And this week we're welcoming Suzie McCafferty to join us. Suzie will be speaking to us as founder of Platinum Wave and a thought leader on growing and improving businesses, especially in the franchise world. Suzie's going to share her thoughts with us today on how in our industry we can be more innovative as we look for new strategies to deal with today's times and the future. We will be taking questions throughout the webinar session, so if you could please put those through on the chat box. I will try and field those through to Suzie as we're talking, and then any that don't get answered we'll try and put to Suzie at the end. So please do, as we go along, think about the questions you'd like to ask and send them through. So Suzie, very happy to have you join us. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, thank you to you all for joining us today, especially on a Friday. I'm sure you've had a manic week like everybody else. I don't know where these days go in the last few weeks. As you said, I'm Suzie McCafferty. I'm Chief Executive of Platinum Wave Franchising. We are a global UK and international franchise consultancy firm working in all sorts of sectors, from food, retail, professional services, children's activities, and so on. But you're probably wondering, well, why am I on this webinar today? When in actual fact, I've been in recruitment, believe it or not, in some shape or form for the last 20 years. So before we get going, if I could just give you a little whistle-stop tour. And then today we're going to chat about how we can use times like this to innovate and be relevant to our clients and the sectors that we're trading in, as well as also unleashing new opportunities. So a little bit about my background. I started in business when I was 23 years old. I'm now just coming on 43, and I had a business that I franchised. They were retail stores, and by the time I was 30, I had about 70 franchises in UK, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Dominican Republic, and Kuwait. So a bit of a theme going on there. They all have beaches, so I could talk about business and you know, franchising at the same time. But after I had that first business, I then took on the running of a well-known corporate franchise brand in recruitment, white-collar recruitment, that we had 90 franchisees at one point and a 30 million network. So my background of building recruitment agencies in the white-collar, we also had a sister brand in the blue-collar industry, is something that I've obviously had for all these years as well. And when I was running that business, which was prior to me starting Platinum Wave, I actually had that while we were trading through that last recession as well. So I completely get where a lot of you are at right now, and the challenges that you're facing having been through a recession, albeit that with a recession we saw that coming maybe 6 months in advance, whereas this, in my experience, was very much a couple of weeks and boom, you know. So I think whilst the challenges are pretty similar, the circumstances are a bit more severe obviously in this scenario, and perhaps the knock-on effects of that. So obviously white collar recruitment and franchising is my background, but with Platinum Wave we also have a sister brand called Franchise Moves, and that is an executive recruitment arm of the business, where we recruit franchisees, but we also recruit executives from managerial up to executive CEO, COO positions within franchising specifically. So they always say you can't take recruitment out the girl. That's very, very true in my world, and it's certainly a personal passion of mine. So with that in mind, today I thought I would talk about some of the learnings that I've had in not only running recruitment agencies through recessions and difficult times, not only running an executive agency just now, but also using a lot of the experience that I've gained through the franchise world, through working with lots of different sectors, food, retail, professional services, etc., as I've said, to bring some learnings to the webinar today. So the topic is all about innovation. And the first thing I would say about innovation is it's obviously a buzzword that everybody's hearing right now. You know, you hit tough times, everybody must innovate. But the reality is, for a lot of businesses, you say, well, what does that actually mean? What is innovation? Where do I start with that? You maybe don't have the culture for innovation right now. You maybe don't have the people around you that are up for, you know, the challenge. You maybe just don't have the brain space for ideas because you're probably balancing things like childcare, or you're working from home with all the other stresses that we're being faced with right now. So I'm going to give you some little tools and lessons learned. So Platinum Wave obviously is the company that I have right now, and we have this little acronym that we've been using for innovation called WAVE. Obviously it's a play on our name, Platinum Wave. So I'm going to chat through that first. And as I say, please do ask any questions on the chat room as you're going along. More than happy to have some chat and debates as we're going through all of this. So WAVE, W stands for worthy. So is any innovation that you're going to introduce be worthy of your brand? So what do I mean by that? So lots of people right now are saying, oh, we have to innovate because that's what everybody's doing. That's what our competitors are doing. But actually, innovating in a crisis can be quite a dangerous move if it's not well considered and well thought out. So innovating for the short term, knee-jerk reactions are not the way to go right now. So any innovation that you are bringing into your business, stop and think, W for WAVE, worthy. Is the innovation worthy of my brand? How will I be seen in front of competitors, in front of my clients? How will the innovation that I'm making right now affect my business 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, a year down the line? So think about the impact of anything that you're introducing rather than actually making that knee-jerk reaction. Is it achievable? Again, it's great. Everybody's saying we need to bring in technology. We need to do this on digital marketing. We need to do this, you know, with our people and our teams. But actually, is the timescale achievable? Is it achievable from a resource point of view? Again, is it achievable from a duration, you know, sustainability point of view? Again, is it something that's just a knee-jerk reaction? So think about A, is it achievable? And the V in WAVE is all about, is it valuable? And this is a big one that I've been harping on to everybody in the franchise world about right now. And innovation needs to be valuable. Don't do it just to be seen to be doing something. Have you actually spoken to your team? Have you spoken to your clients? Have you spoken to your suppliers? Do you actually know that anything you're going to use and innovate with is actually going to be of benefit, or are you just doing it to be seen to be busy? One thing I would say right now is there's a lot of noise out there, especially on social media, where you've got lots of businesses trying to be out there in front of people. I've been seeing lots of businesses who are just being really noisy and are actually damaging their brands because they're going out there blatantly acting like nothing's changed. Their marketing messages are still the same. They're acting like life is still rosy and effectively that this pandemic doesn't exist. The fact is it does, and it is going to have an impact on everybody's business, those of your clients as well as your teams as well. So think about how you're going to be perceived in the market right now. You know, is what you're saying going to make you look good, or are you going to stand out as one of the guys and groups that are just making noise? Trust me, there are people out there right now who are making lists of the good guys and the bad guys. Maybe people have respected your brands before, but just by not using the right messaging, not being relevant, they might change their view of you and your business. So have a real strong think about, are you being relevant? Also look at what your competitors are doing and learn from that, the good and the bad. You don't want to be seen, as I said, as the bad guy. So really think about the moves and the messaging that you're putting out there. There's lots of people talking about building brand equity or being seen as relevant as part of this valuable phase, and that's something that as recruiters was really, really relevant in the recession and when I went through this before, and it's even more relevant now. So what I would say when you're thinking about V for value is what you're creating right now going to build brand value, build brand equity, be seen as someone who's actually empathetic? And that brings us on to the next, the last letter in the acronym of WAVE is empathetic. So think about your messages and say, is what I'm putting out there, are the conversations that I'm having with my clients relevant? Am I listening to their problems, or am I just trying to sell, sell, sell? And it's really hard in recruitment because you've got to keep that pipeline going. We all know you're only as good as your last quarter. You've got to keep the pipeline going. You've got to keep the conversations happening. But trust me, now is not the time to be selling to your clients. Now is the time for showing empathy, building on those relationships, being that sounding board, listening to the challenges that are happening within the different sectors, and really trying to understand for your clients how you can help them come up with solutions. So that's how you build brand equity. That's how you build those relationships, and that's how you show that empathy that's really, really important. So that little acronym of WAVE, W being worthy, A being achievable, V being valuable, and E being empathetic, is maybe a little tool you could use and take back to your team in your next team meeting and think about, okay, this is where we're at right now. We're not in the stage that we were perhaps maybe 2 months ago. Maybe now we're starting to say, okay, what does business look like moving forward now that things have settled into a state of play? What are we actually dealing with here? So that then brings me on to some important elements of innovating. So I said before, don't have knee-jerk reactions to innovate. It's all about thinking what is relevant. So first thing you need to do, if you haven't done it already, is go out and speak to your clients and find out what's happening in their world. What are the challenges? What are the things they're starting to think about when they start unlocking the doors of the office, of the premises, of the location, and say, okay, what does your new world look like now? I'll give you an example. We work a lot in the food franchise sector, and one of our clients this week in particular was telling me, Susie, our world is going to be completely different when we open our doors, which is going to happen gradually. And how true could that be? You know, he told me that no longer in this bar and restaurant franchise would he have table service with people. You go in, you have a QR code on the back of a menu, a throwaway menu, and that then sends your order to the kitchen. So that takes away a level of staffing, which us as recruiters would normally be helping to recruit. Then the kitchen crew are going to be reduced right down, and then the bar crew are going to be reduced right down. So straight away, we're sitting looking at a client saying, right, your world is going to be very different moving forward, and your recruitment needs are going to be very different moving forward. And actually, the profile of your team and your structure is actually going to be quite different to what it was before. So this is the types of conversations you could be having with your clients, and you probably are already. So when I talk about innovation, I'm not thinking about anything particularly clever or new. It's actually being seen as relevant, and making sure that you're innovating your systems, your marketing, your conversations, your business development approaches, so that you are relevant, you are useful, you are building that brand equity that we spoke about before. Okay, I don't know if there's any questions coming through at all.
There's one, Susie, but I might just hold it for a moment because I have a feeling you may touch on it. But
okay.
I'll put it in if you don't. But I just wanted to add in, if I may, and just say that I think you've spoken a huge amount of sense. And I know we're only a short way through, but I think your point around the noise out there and people just trying to be seen rather than do something that has an impact or adds value is really important. And it does feel at the moment as though LinkedIn is getting a little bit competitive, and it's a little bit more about I've got to be seen rather than actually am I making a difference in what I'm doing. And there are some people doing some really great things actually to be different and to be helpful and to show empathy. And I think what you just touched on, I would like to also highlight is this piece that innovation doesn't necessarily have to be wacky and clever and never done before. Sometimes when we talk about innovation, we make it this big thing that's almost untouchable. But innovation, as you said, just means thinking a bit differently, maybe applying yourself in a different way and making it relevant. Yeah. And what that means is that you've got to have that openness to change and look and view things differently to before. And I think that's really important, isn't it? That we don't make it too complicated or too...
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was trading my recruitment agencies through the recession period, that was a great example of innovation. Again, nothing groundbreakingly different, but actually it was innovative because it changed the way that our franchisees were going to market. So I thought I'd just give you a case study of what we did in those times, because again, it's entirely relevant to where a lot of you will be at today, as I am in my executive search side of the business as well. So when we were trading through the recession, there was a couple of key points that we actually implemented to make sure we were relevant and that we our franchisees could trade. So the first thing we did is, we all talk about loving your candidates and clients, and that very much still applies. You know, keeping your candidates and clients close is of paramount importance right now. Many of them might be furloughed, I get that completely, but for those who you can contact, make sure that you're keeping close, ask them how they're doing, you know, find out, as I said, what's happening in their world, especially on the client side. On the candidate side, in some sectors, there's going to be some really high quality candidates available soon because of redundancies that will ultimately follow, or people who decide that they just don't want to go back to the brands that they were working with, for example. So keeping your top quality candidates, your A-star candidates, close to you right now is really important. So checking in with them, sending them text messages, how are you doing, what have you been up to, keeping that relationship is so important. So that's the first thing that we did. The second thing is, we realised that now is not the time to pound in the phones, you know, trying to pick up the phone, have you got any jobs? Have you, what can we be helping you with? The fact is, as I said, now is not the time to be doing that. Now is the time to be picking up the phone, speaking to people about what's happening in their world. The third thing is adapting how you communicate with your clients and candidates in this world. So again, in the recession, we introduced things like WhatsApp groups, and we introduced forums, we introduced closed groups where we could have clients and candidates in these environments, in that sort of that Me Too environments where they were part of a community. So again, it showed that you were going over and above with your candidates and clients to keep them close and give a little bit of value. And just generally being that sounding board, that was another thing that our consultants were working even harder to be, that sounding board in those stages. Responding to a need was really relevant to us. So again, just like I said before, actually speaking to clients, finding out what their challenges are and actually coming up with solutions, helping them with their planning, being a bit more consultative in your approach than you might normally be, offering that, you know, obviously free of charge, that goodwill, that empathy again was hugely important for us. And then the other thing is adapting our training programs, our marketing programs, our systems to manage the new world that we were trading in the different sectors that we were then looking to target at that time was hugely important. So we were predominantly PARMS recruitment at the time. We always did temp, but in that market, there was a massive opportunity, obviously, to really increase our temp base there, because, you know, not everybody was looking to recruit full time, and it was that slowly approach to bringing people back into work. So from looking at flipping predominantly PARM into what was then, in some of the areas, 2/3 temp market, we had to adapt our marketing. We had to adapt our training for our consultants to make sure that they understood the world they were trading in the temp side of things, which we all know is completely different to the PARM side of things. And we had to make sure our systems could properly cope with the increase in the demand on that side of things. But very importantly, what I learned through the recession, on top of all of that, was the importance of acting at pace and the importance of acting with clarity. So that's important not only for your clients, because they're looking for somebody to offer advice. They're looking for somebody to be that voice of authority to say, this is the world we're trading in. But your team, it starts there. You know, your team are looking to you as leaders in your business, if you're owning these businesses yourself, to actually, you know, lay out the landscape. What is it going to look like for the next 3 months and 6 months? And how are you as a business going to be reacting to that? What are you going to be expecting of your team? The importance of their role in that environment to help get the business and your candidates and clients to where they need to be. So acting at pace with well-considered communication is so important. In the franchise world, where you've got that tier of franchisor and franchisee and then the end user, that acting at pace and with clarity has been so important. And it's the brands that have done that quickly and effectively and confidently that have managed to keep their franchisees and their teams and their clients on board. So just think about how you could apply that to your business and say, have I actually been the leader that I need to be in my business? Have I been the consultant that I need to be to my clients? Am I acting with clarity and confidence in this world? And if you do all of these things, you will have a much stronger business as a result. So again, it's not rocket science, any of that stuff. It's all about saying, I need a plan. The plan needs to look like this, and you have the confidence to then execute that.
And the question that had come through, Suzie, was about how do I make my calls different and what can I speak to my clients about that sounds and is different? And I think that you've probably answered the question there, haven't you? Because it's not about, as you said, ringing up to say, what business have you got that I can take? It's actually about how can I help you? What can I understand about your business to prepare me to help you in the future? And how can I share with you things that other people are experiencing that might help you? And so the calls now are about giving rather than necessarily taking, aren't they?
Absolutely, but it's also, I'm a big believer of this concept of being human in business. I still, 20 years of running multi-million-pound businesses, you cannot, whilst we can't meet people face to face, we can still be personable, we can still be human. So on these calls, it's so important you ask them, how are they? Not about the business, how are they? What's been happening in their world? How difficult has it been at home to juggle childcare, to not be able to get out, and work in an environment with your team? So that's where you can make your calls a bit different. Talk about the bloopers that are happening, the things that have happened at home. Talk about the challenges. Talk about, have you had any Zoom calls with your friends? At the weekends, and bring that human personal side in is really important. I've also been doing with a lot of my contacts and prospects is I've been saying, do you know what, rather than have a call, let's have a Zoom and then bring a cuppa or bring a sandwich at lunchtime onto our call. And again, it's bringing that human personal element, because taking the time to do that makes you stand out from your competitors who are maybe not as focused on that,
I agree, and I think this time, if nothing else, has shown that we are all human, aren't we? I mean, none of us are robots, none of us are immune to what's going on out there, and actually it's been a big reminder, I think, about how that human element now is so important. And we're sitting talking to people while they're in their studies, in their living rooms, in bedrooms, kids are coming in the room, and actually it softens everything up a lot, and it does create a much nicer way of engaging and building a relationship, which might be a good thing we hang on to in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chat about how these kinds of calls can be exhausting when you're sitting in front of somebody every day chatting like this. But again, recruitment is all about relationships, isn't it? So if you can't speak to people on the phone, why not sit like this? It's much more personable, and you're building relationships as a result. I've been on calls where we've set challenges to bring on song of the day, make it fun. You can change the backgrounds on Zoom, put a theme behind it. You could get your temps together on a Zoom call and have a session with your temps on a Zoom call all together. On a Friday night, have a glass of wine or something together, and that's bringing your temp community together and keeping them engaged as well, having a bit of fun with you, because other agencies won't be doing it.
One of the questions, and you might be answering this in your in what you've got planned, Suzie, so if you are, don't let me break your routine up, but we've got a question that's, can you recall the most impressive example of innovation that you've seen throughout your career and that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I guess it's starting to come out the woodwork right now. I've got a client right now who's in the children's part-time theatre school business, and they were founded on Dragon's Den, as it happens, which was fabulous, and we've worked with them for about 10 years now. And by the nature of children's activity franchises, they tend to be quite low investment, and the management service fees that a franchisee would pay to the franchisor are generally quite low compared to some of the food franchises and the larger professional services franchises, which means by nature they've got less investment normally to spend on innovating and doing all the things that the bigger brands can do. However, this pandemic hits, and one of the shining examples of absolute franchise royalty has come from this client of ours, who's in the part-time theatre school business, as I said, where all of a sudden their franchisees can't open the doors. They operate from schools. Nobody's sending kids to classes. Straight away, the revenues of their franchisees is wiped out. Or was it? What they did straight away, literally talk about agile, confidence, pace. They got busy as a head office team. They started to write an online program, which is different to their theatre schools face-to-face, but it was keeping their customers engaged, keeping the kids able to do their razzmatazz sessions in some shape or form. Within a couple of weeks, they'd flipped that into a curriculum that they put online, and now it's a paid for service. So again, it doesn't need to be rocket science, but acting at pace and clarity and just getting on with the job has been brilliant. Their marketing to their customers has been so vital during this time as well. Empathizing with, finding problems and how to keep your kids occupied at home. This is what we've done to help. So they're relevant, they're innovative, they are shown to be caring. That has built up phenomenal amounts of brand equity, and it's a shining example of innovation, in my opinion.
That's great, thank you. We have got some more questions, Suzie, but I'm mindful of letting you kind of work through what you've planned to say. And
Yeah, no, great. So I guess a lot of people that I've been speaking to recently are saying, I get this word innovation, but I just don't know where to start, or I've just not got the energy, or half of my staff are furloughed. Where do I start on this? So firstly, I would sit down and say, right, recapping on what we've said, what are the challenges that are being faced by your clients, and what are the challenges that you're facing in your business with keeping candidates engaged and whatever, and think about what are the things that could actually make a difference. A quick win, something that's not going to be groundbreaking. It could just be your communication style, it could be the frequency of communication, the tone of communication, the relevance of your communication. That's first and foremost. The other thing I'd look at is the sectors that you're trading in, obviously. Looking at what's going to be happening and planning out the different sectors that you're currently trading in versus where the opportunities are, knowing that this new world in the next 3 to 6 months is going to be quite different, at least for that duration of time. So if you're not already in these sectors, depending on the constraints you have within your corporate structure, don't be scared to think about where the magic is actually going to happen and how can you be part of that. They always say out of adversity comes opportunity, and that is so true. So just doing the same is not going to get you to where you need to get to. It might come back, but actually take a look at the market. So your innovation strategy should say, right, where are the opportunities over the next 3 to 6 months from a sector point of view? So that's the first thing. Where are the skills gap within our organisation? So maybe, going into a new sector, you don't have that knowledge. How do you get that knowledge, and how do you get it quickly, and how do you establish credibility? So think about how you're going to do that. Then once you've done that, look at the cost of rolling that out, and then look at the training required to bring your team up to speed to then roll that out. So guaranteed, if you sit and do the same things, you'll get the same results. Where the magic always happens is if you step out that comfort zone and you look at what's possible and you take that jump. But if you take that jump, you get behind it 100%. There's no coming back. You don't want to be dabbling in something and doing it badly, because that causes damage to your reputation as a brand. So look at where the sector's opportunities are, and look at how you can get behind that and diversify. So diversification is obviously one element of innovation. I've got clients that are actually in sectors that are booming. In the home care market, for example, they're one of few sectors right now that are busier than ever. But with that comes innovation for them, because actually sending caregivers into houses that have COVID symptoms, they are having to innovate in terms of how they find more reliable PPE equipment, this personal protection equipment. So innovation for them has been, we know we're going to be busier doing the same of the same, but actually our innovation needs to be, we need to be smarter at how we purchase PPE equipment. So they've had to be more innovative in where they find it, and how they stock it and how they deliver it. So that's an example of innovation in that scenario as well. Okay.
One of the questions that come in, which might slot in quite nicely now, is how do I convince others in my business to innovate? The person that's written this question has said they can see some real opportunities, but they're not a senior person. So how do they, I guess, influence upwards to try and have some of the ideas of theirs and others heard?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult, isn't it? Because not everybody can see what you can see and at the same time. So it does take some pretty strong influencing skills to be able to get that across. I'm guessing you probably have team meetings or team powwows or that kind of thing. So putting together a well-considered idea to bring to that is the first, to your team meeting is the first thing that I would say. I would always welcome in my offices when consultants and teams came to me saying, I have been speaking to my clients, I've listened to my clients, here's the feedback I've got, there's the problem they've got, but here's the solution I think we could help them with. So it's all in the way you frame it. If you're framing it on the fact that you've had feedback from your clients, obviously it's got to be genuine, and here's the solution that you're suggesting, and here's your thoughts behind it. So think about things like the practicalities of rolling it out. Think of the finances required to roll it out, and how you could suggest how that could be done. That would be the first. That would be the first step that I would suggest.
And sometimes sharing your idea with a couple of other people and testing it out on them's good, isn't it? And then see if you can get some advocates and champions that will also then support you, perhaps if you're in a meeting, and reinforce your message perhaps with some of their experiences as well. Could be a good way of giving it a bit more gravitas.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that's the biggest sort of points that I had about innovation. So as just to recap, it doesn't need to be something you're innovative, although we are seeing people bringing in technology when they didn't have it before, whether that's using the likes of Zoom or GoToMeetings, or actually bringing in better software platforms, better websites. So think about, it doesn't need to be innovative in terms of new things like that, but at the very least, your innovations need to be relevant. So the messaging that you're putting out there, how you're viewed by not only your candidates and clients, but potential prospects. So think about what's the messaging you're putting out there right now, and how are you going to be viewed from doing that. Think about the effect of anything you're implementing now. Is it there as a temporary measure? Or is it going to be something that's there for the longer term that will stick as part of your business model? So if you're looking at new sectors or diversifying into temp where you've done perm before or whatever, think about that strategy. To get buy-in from everybody, it starts at the top. It starts at the owner of the business, then the team, and then your candidates and clients. So when you're innovating, make sure you collaborate and get views from all of these stakeholders for maximum effect when you're rolling out any strategy, not let alone anything that's a little bit more innovative. So engagement, massively important. And then the final thing I'd like to say is, if you're going to be implementing anything new at all, whether it's messaging, technology, approaches, sectors, whatever, make sure you're monitoring it. That's where people forget with innovation. They think, yeah, we've launched it, it's done, yeah, that's fine. When actually, what's the success of it? Is it working? Or with a little bit of tweaking and monitoring, could it be better? Or is it just really not working and the plug should be pulled to save face and save money and all these types of things? So don't be scared to innovate. I appreciate that people don't always have the culture, and right now maybe don't have the team around you if people are furloughed, to be able to sit and innovate proactively. There are little quick wins you can be doing, as I said, especially in recruitment right now. Keeping close to your candidates and keeping close to your clients and your prospects by being seen as human, actually caring and empathizing. If you put in this groundwork now, when the market comes back, it certainly will come back to you, because you'll be building all that brand equity through innovating like this. So that was really my session. the points I wanted to cover. I'd really love to open up the floor to any questions, debates, challenges, troubleshooting that I can help with at this stage.
Thank you. All very sensible, Suzie. That's great. Please do send any more questions you've got through so that we can make sure we pose them to Suzie before we wrap up. One of the questions we haven't yet answered, Suzie, is has our current situation opened up opportunities for your business?
Yeah, massively actually. And having gone through a recession, I thought I'd seen it all. At even 20 years of running a business, I'm reacting differently this time round. So my consultancy company, Franchise Consultancy, have an award-winning company, enviable client base, the dream team that everybody wishes. And literally, as I said before, within 2 weeks, my business had changed significantly. We obviously have strong cash flow, so that's fine. We're hoping to ride this out, and as they always say, out of adversity comes opportunity. But I'm one of these people that I can't sit still. Actually, I'm used to being on a plane or a train or something, so sitting at home is really tough for me. So I thought, right, I need to get smart here. So my innovation was actually about this relationship building. I can't be helping people franchise their businesses if they're trying to save their business right now. But what I can be doing is be seeing as valuable and building all this brand value that I spoke about. So about 6 weeks ago, I set up a board called Franchise Advisory Board. And it's a group basically that every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I run a webinar for franchisors and aspiring franchisors to troubleshoot. And I've set up a panel of experts. So people like myself, law firms, employment law firms, accountancy firms, who can actually answer burning questions that are affecting franchisors' businesses there and then for free. So from doing that, in the last 6 weeks, I've built up over 100 members of franchisors. I can honestly say, even having been in the industry all these years, I'd say 2/3 of them were people that I hadn't engaged with before. So straight away, I have created a network that's a safe place to be for franchisors, a credible place to be, because we're bringing panels of experts to give them advice on things that are relevant to their business right now. I'm heading it up, but I'm not selling to them anything relating to franchising. And on the back of that, there was a demand to spin off a Facebook group. So now people are posting on there daily, in between these weekly webinars, asking for free advice or sharing experience with other franchisors. So we've created something of real brand value, which I think is quite innovative, because that's something that we can all use now in our businesses. And I certainly have now a network of trusted people for the future.
That's great advice. And I think what you're doing there is building your own network, isn't it? And we all know that we'd all like to think that actually the way we'll win business in the future is predominantly through our network, rather than knocking on closed doors and having to try and open them. So what you're doing is giving something back to people, but also, like you said, putting yourself front of mind for the time at which they are ready to engage and ready to take your services, and they will come back to the people that are front of mind, won't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that I keep banging on about is make sure you're being relevant. Don't be selling to people right now. They're the people that will stand out as brands that people just don't respect. So how can you be useful, and how can you empathize, and how can you add value? That applies to any business, not just recruitment.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, we don't actually have any more questions. We've managed to get through them all as we've spoken, Suzie, which has been fabulous. I've really enjoyed talking to you, because I think it's so good to get an outside perspective. I do find in the recruitment industry we're sometimes quite cocooned, and we do tend to look very much internally, and sometimes forget to look outside our industry. And I guess those people that are most innovative will look outside as well as inside to take the best of the ideas that are out there, and then bring them and tweak them and apply them as is appropriate and relevant. So I think you triggering us to be mindful of that and understand that we can learn from our own industry and what we're doing, and from others outside, particularly our clients, as you were saying. So thank you for being so thought-provoking.
Thank you for having me.
Value of your experience. Next week we've got Dion Johnson, who will be talking to us about redefining yourself as an influential woman and developing authentic leadership style, which I think will follow on quite nicely actually, because to be innovative and forward thinking will draw on all your authenticity, as Susie's talked about, and the more authentic you are, the more believable you tend to be, and the more people will buy in and trust hopefully what you put forward. So that will be a nice one to follow on with. But have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.